So let's begin by settling the body, adopting a stable, comfortable, upright position serviceable for meditation. So think about keeping our feet flat and our back straight, torso open. Hands in the lap, right over left, with the palms upturned and the thumbs gently touching. Our eyes are gently closed or slightly open, making sure we let in enough light to remain alert. Try to maintain an awareness of not slouching, not leaning. I also let go of any unnecessary tension or rigidity in the body, relaxing into a stable, comfortable, upright position. So allowing the body to fall into place. And begin to let go of attending to the outside world, allowing sights and sounds to be as they are. No need to investigate, constraining your awareness just to the body and mind. Concentrating that awareness in the present by attending closely to the physical sensation that accompanies the in breath and the out breath, and the space around the opening of the nostrils. Noticing quickly when anything other than that one physical sensation arises in the mind. And then, without judgment or frustration, lifting your awareness up from those distractions and placing it gently but firmly again and again on the breath. And then when the mind feels more calm, we'll generate a broad altruistic motivation for our time to begin to cultivate a sense of how fortunate we are to have yet another day in this perfect human rebirth with all of its freedoms and endowments, recognizing that the mind itself is free from the afflictions at its most essential nature, its most basic. It is true that afflicted states of mind are present in our current experience, but they only arise due to causes and conditions. And therefore, they can cease due to the arising of different causes and conditions. And this perfect human rebirth provides the most beneficial set of circumstances, inner and outer, for taking advantage of the nature of our mind, being able to truly tap into its potential, going beyond simply using this life to amass greater comfort, greater status, greater wealth, but being able to use this life to really tap into the capacity of the mind for spiritual growth. The mind being a formless energy that has no limit. The more that we cultivate love and compassion and generosity and patience and ethics, the more deeply the mind will become familiar with these states without any end. And that's the true value of this perfect human rebirth. And yet there are countless, incalculable sentient beings who aren't so similarly situated, so privileged in this life. And so to use this opportunity to develop our mind not only for our own benefit, but primarily for the benefit of those sentient beings who aren't so capable of developing their mind, tapping into their mind's potential. That's the highest purpose to which we could devote ourselves. So think of using this time to create those causes and conditions, to tap into your mind's potential for the benefit of others. And with that motivation, as Gendon has begun to teach on Chandrakirti's praise to great compassion, one thing that he mentioned is that the essential entryway into compassion, into the wish for oneself and all other sentient beings to be free of suffering, is the necessity of deeply confronting, deeply understanding all of the forms of suffering, even their most subtle forms. Otherwise, the antidotes that we apply will be insufficient to overcome suffering if our understanding of it is very basic, very surface level. So the Buddha taught that suffering or dissatisfaction, unsatisfactoriness, has three categories, the first of which is something that we would all understand, all agree with, the suffering of pain. The suffering of pain is every overt kind of mental and physical, unwanted, unwished for, distressing event or experience. There are very severe forms of this that arise from war, disasters, or famines, violent crimes, crushing poverty, abuses, addictions, injuries, illnesses, injustices. And then there's very mundane, everyday examples of aches and pains, hunger and thirst, aging, fatigue, anxieties, depressions. So think in your own life how the suffering of pain is something that you're very rarely without in some form. Even in this moment, there's likely some unsatisfactoriness happening in the body, in the mind, some agitation. So confront the truth of the suffering of pain in your life. And begin to extend out your understanding to encompass all other sentient beings. They too have lives conditioned by the suffering of pain, whether human or animal, those in other realms. All of these countless living beings are not so different from yourself. Then the second, more subtle level of unsatisfactoriness is changeable suffering. The difficulty with changeable suffering is that we're not in agreement that it is suffering, that it is unsatisfactory, because all of the sources of changeable suffering are the things that we pursue, that we label as pleasure, as happiness. So, although we naturally are averse to the sources of the suffering of pain, we tend to run toward these sources of changeable suffering. Good food, vacations, listening to music, going to the movies, going to museums, whatever activities we enjoy that we seek out, that we save up for, that we look forward to. All of these experiences are fleeting, and they come with their own attendant suffering. When we begin the experience, we feel relief from a previous feeling of boredom or anxiety or being separated or bereft. But then as the experience unfolds, it must come to an end before we become tired or bored of it. How many bowls of the best food could we eat? How many hours could we spend in the same museum? How many times could we watch the same movie in the same day? All of these sources would become painful upon repetition. So they themselves come with a suffering that becomes more and more noticeable the longer we are in contact with them, which demonstrates that they're not in the nature of happiness. Because if they were, we would become happier and happier instead of needing to be separated at some point from what we thought was happiness. So, again, think now of your relationship to these sources of changeable suffering. Seeing them as never having been truly satisfying. In fact, feeding agitation, feeding a sense of needing to repeat the experience again and again. As actually being responsible for the mind of dissatisfaction, the mind of craving. And the final category of unsatisfactoriness is all pervasive suffering or dissatisfaction. And this refers or acknowledges that as an ordinary sentient being, we are not free from the arising of karma mixed with delusion. In each moment, we create new karma mixed with delusion, and in each moment, we experience the ripening of past karma mixed with delusion, which means necessarily that we are not able to choose fully our experiences. We're unable to choose our rebirths. We're unable to choose the ripening of our experiences. And this is a cycle that has been beginningless for oneself and for all other ordinary sentient beings. And yet, the situation is not causeless. All of these sources of dissatisfaction are rooted in the fact that fundamental ignorance is operative in the mind, that we have a mistaken view of ourselves, of others, of phenomena, and generating a deep insight into the nature of reality liberates us from this cycle of dissatisfaction. So we can use this perfect human rebirth to put an end to this cycle, wanting to do so to be able to gain the skills, the ability to lead all others out of suffering as well. So generate an optimistic mind that's determined to use this life skillfully to overcome suffering, dissatisfaction. And then when you're ready, we'll come back together. And we'll dedicate. So recollect your altruistic motivation and think that by having engaged in this contemplation, you've actualized that motivation which has generated positive energy in your mind, and think that you freely offer the fruit of your practice, that positive energy for the benefit of all sentient beings without exception. Thinking strongly when this positive energy ripens, may it serve as a cause and condition to eliminate war and conflict, poverty, famine, disease, disasters, all painful inner and outer conditions. May it fully ripen the minds of all sentient beings. May they quickly meet perfect teachers and arise in the state of full enlightenment. May I too achieve the state of enlightenment so that I might work for the benefit of sentient beings perfectly. May any obstacles facing the Guru's long life be completely dispelled. May I and all sentient beings in this moment come under the joyful care and guidance of enlightened beings. May we be guided and protected until we swiftly achieve that state of enlightenment. Thank you.